gestures today are all over the map, but they're ending with snicked. Guess what, Isaac?
These are my three. See my three?
Yep.
My 3 and 3.
We're talking about Wolverine. It's Key Issue, the definitive podcast. I'm Randall Lobb.
I'm Isaac Elliott Fisher.
Can you say it the old-fashioned way, like the GGN way?
Isaac Elliott Fisher.
Reporting for Kids World.
GGL.
How long ago was Kids World, Isaac? Do you have any 80s?
Kids World? Was that like...
It was a show.
Was that like that I remember a kids show that was like a kids game show where kids sat in these plastic race cars and did trivia questions. And then at the end, the prize that they would win would to go into this toy room and they could go home with like as many toys as they want. That was like a dream.
The answer is no.
Okay, totally different thing.
Kids World was like kids news, and it took place back in the old days. And the old days are important to us right now because we're talking about Wolverine, and Wolverine showed up many, many long years ago, something like 11 years before you were born.
You know what? I'm curious, Rand. I'm curious. We all know that we kind of dabble in what people would call nostalgia, right?
We're nostalgic.
Nostalgia. So it's sort of a thing. So I know that we've had this conversation many times over the years.
Yeah.
Like the things that we do, the projects that we work on, a lot of them are to do with things we liked personally, right? So myself, I got a lot of nostalgic feelings. One might say I have a lot of feelings, even.
Yes, you do. That's
right.
true.
So I'm going to ask you, Rand, do you have nostalgic feelings for Wolverine?
I do.
Nice.
Guilty as charged.
Nice. We have now proven it on the air, everybody, that Randall Lobb is a real human being.
It is common that when we are doing this program that I am referring to material that I'm either newly collecting or thinking about collecting or playing around with. And Wolverine I'm interested in for real from back in the day.
Nice.
What do you think started me on my Wolverine lifestyle?
Comics.
He's Canadian, though.
Oh, right. Yes, right. Sorry. Comics.
Comics, yeah. To me, Wolverine is comics. Like if you said Wolverine from the 90s X-Men, I would say that wasn't really my thing.
And you're
and
also an adult by then, so...
If you say Wolverine from the movies, I would be like, yeah, I mean...
It's an interpretation of the thing that you love.
It's our Wolverine. It's not the Wolverine.
That's right. I mean, so, in which case, see, personally, growing up with the X-Men that I was exposed to, which was primarily the toys boom surrounding the 90s the 90s cartoon show.
Yeah.
I don't think that the show, if I don't remember correctly, I might be wrong here, but I don't remember personally the show really leaning into anything about him being a Canadian origin. So for you, were you aware of that right out of the gate, that he was a Canadian character?
Yes. My introduction to Wolverine was based around an older kid telling me there's a Canadian superhero aside from Captain Canuck, because I had Captain Canuck.
You know what I want, though? I want Nelvana of the North because she's the first female superhero, predates Wonder Woman.
Yeah, from the what they call the Canadian whites? Is that
whites? The Canadian whites. That's right, the Canadian whites.
We're a couple of Canadian whites, but we do not. We talked about that with the Wonder Woman. We're tired of this being the same people all the time. We want to branch out, just like Marvel wanted to do in 1974. We wanted to branch out. What they realized. Roy the Boy Thomas, had this understanding that comic books were very, and they still are, so take this with a grain of salt, were very white, very male, very North American, very American. And they felt, in fact, if you look at Spider-Man, very New York a lot of the time. So Roy Thomas was working with Len Wein, or Len Wein, however people say it, and John Romita. And there's a little bit to the whole John Romita of it all. But basically, they were coming up with different kinds of heroes. And they were looking for, I would describe it as range. So I have some notes here. That's the year, 1974, the year that The Punisher came out in February. It's Amazing Spider-Man 129. That's the year that Master of Kung Fu 17 came out. And Marvel Special Edition was the first Iron Fist. You had Deathlock. You had Fool Killer, which is an interesting Marvel character. Over at DC, Batman 258 was the first Arkham Asylum. You had Harvey Bullock, you had OMAC, you had Sandman. And in France, Isaac, you had something called Métal-Hurlant. What would that be?
Ooh, that's a great little tidbit. That's the predecessor to heavy metal.
That's right.
National Lampoon came in I think, 77, April 77, and basically just reprinted the French comic magazine, Metal Hurlant, and made it heavy metal as we know it today.
So there was a kind of an expansion happening in comics in 74. Actually, prior to 74. We know the Barbarian that we love came out in 70. But in pop culture, there were some interesting little tidbits that were being baked in. And one of those things is particularly relevant to Wolverine, and that is the anti-hero. And a movie came out in 1974 called Death Wish, and Death Wish had a vigilante. And of course, you would say superheroes have always been vigilantes, but they were always vigilantes within a context of sort of justice, fighting crime, punching bad guys. And there was a very
good, wholesome American white Captain America, Superman.
Yeah. You punch Hitler in the jaw, you sock Hitler.
Yeah.
Whereas there would be a sense that maybe modern heroes in the 70s, after some tough years in Vietnam, America was getting into a darker mode, let's say it nicely. Mm-hmm. And so it was being reflected in the comics. And 1974, this comic came out.
I love the sound effects that we have in the show. They're really, they add a lot, you know? Oh, there we go. Look at that.
There's Hulk 180. And there's Hulk 182, and there it is. Hulk 181. Now, let me turn them around.
Get them right over. Come on now.
These came out in 74. This is, Nick, do you want to go to the last page? Remember I gave you a little, did I send you the little Wolverine last page, last frame?
This is going to really be telling, Rand. We're really going to look into how much money you've got sitting in front of you on that table.
It's intense right now. Let's talk about it.
Let's get into it.
We'll get there in a minute.
All right.
The final panel, maybe I didn't send it to Nick. Maybe it's just scrolling on the TV behind me. I sent it to Mark. The final panel of this comic has Wolverine.
But this is not considered the key issue.
This is a cameo. It's a key issue, but it's the cameo. Isaac, if I wanted to buy Wolverine's first appearance, and if I bought this one and it was from the final panel, what would this cost me?
Oh, it's trending up. We're trending up at 0.4%. Currently in the green. Ungraded raw comic, $426. Graded average 8.5 is a $648 comic. But if you wanted to go and get yourself a really nice 9.8 back in April 30th of 2020, it only sold for a cool $10,200.
I do not have one in that quality.
What is your condition, Rand? Let's look at the chart here. Come on, you can condition. We all know that you're all about conditions, right? Grading.
You got a lot of conditions. I did not pay that much for this.
No.
I got this as part of a deal a few years ago in a little pile. So
I mean, but even like a 1.8, like you're talking really bad condition, it's still a $170 comic.
And I bought this for $100.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Considering that looks a little bit better than a 1.8, I think, I'm seeing it from here.
If you wanted to get crazy, there was an ad. Now, I sent you the ad, Nick. Do you have the ad, the Wolverine ad that you can pull up? I think he'll be able to pull that up. There was in 3 titles, Daredevil 115, Marvel Premiere 19, and Thor 229. There were ads for Hulk 181. And it's a little half panel. It's a little ad. Maybe I didn't send it to Nick. Maybe we'll add that later.
About this.
But you can see, basically, there's an ad for Hulk 181. Right. You could buy those. Again, you don't have to write them down. Isaac, you don't have to search them. Daredevil 115, Marvel Premiere 19, and Thor 229. There's a little half-page ad. But here it is.
So you're saying that those are key issues because of the ad
you
placement?
could get them and you would be getting a piece of Hulk 181, but you're not getting Hulk 181. Here it is.
Which is the key issue.
This is actual Hulk 181.
Okay.
I bought this. It's not in the best of shape, people who are looking at it, but it is probably one of my ultimate keys. Hulk 181 is the first full appearance of Wolverine, cover and appearance. Remember, cameo is 180. Then, by the way, if you also have to go get 182, you'll say, is Wolverine in that too? He has appearance in the story, and then he is taken away from the story. He gets a little action. But it's Hulk 181 that everybody wants. It's a comic that is always, I mean, if you have it, you want a better version of it. You can't afford it because, Isaac, talk about Hulk 181. Everybody knows. Everybody watching this knows.
Yeah, oh yeah. Raw comic value over $1,000. Graded comic at an 8 or above is the $3,200 comic. But your record
32
high,
what?
3,200.
32.
32.75 for a graded 8. But
32,000.
no, 3,200 at an average graded 8.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I'm saying highest known value at a 9.8, sold back in November 2018, was a $38,400 comic.
So I have probably 4.5, 5.
4.5,
like
5. Okay,
I'm not good at that game.
4.5. I know you're horrible at this game, but we like to guess anyway. Yeah, you're looking at between 26 and 2,700 American.
And I did not pay anything like that for it because I got it a few years back when
You
I
lucked out,
wanted
and
it. It was
it's
a
still
key.
trending up. It's still on it.
It's you have to have it.
Yeah, I mean, you look that cover is like one of those covers that is in everything. Like
You
you've seen
can
it.
go buy, Isaac.
Yeah.
You can go buy the repro.
There are very many repros. That's good grammar, guys.
And that makes you
There are
feel
many,
good
very
because
many.
you still have a piece of it. You have a nice, fresh new version.
Yeah, and they're on average raw estimated anywhere between like $5 and $70 for like a reprint. So that's not too bad. I wouldn't get the recover. The 2001, that doesn't look cool.
What if you see a nice 182? Like my 182 is pretty nice.
182 is well, it's a raw comic at $67. Middle grade is like 137. The highest known is like a $2,750 comic.
And I paid 60.
That's pretty good. $60, yeah. And if it's a good quality one, that's pretty good. That's a good deal.
Yeah. Notice how you didn't ask me what I paid for my 181.
I never ask.
We will not
I
discuss, but I certainly did not pay $1,000 for it.
Well,
But,
you got
but
a
I
good
would
deal.
have
Yeah. Yeah,
because it's not going down. They're not making more. Wait a minute. Well, you just said that they were.
Yeah, they're not making any more in 1970 whatever.
74. So what is the cool thing about Wolverine? Well, we know that Wolverine, we talked a little bit about this before. Wolverine was created by Roy Thomas, Len Wein, and John Romita. That issue, the art is by Herb Trimpe. Now, let's just quickly hit something about John Romita. And I'm going to have to refer a little bit to my notes because I'm going to screw something up. Romita got his start in DC Romance and Atlas Comics. He went back to Marvel in '65 and he was doing the Kirby style by looking at a Kirby page. Now, Isaac, we talked about Kirby is, for some people, you weren't a huge fan, but Kirby was a genius of layouts. We've been told this many times. Remember the story of someone that we interviewed who watched Kirby do a page and do all the layouts in this beautiful...
Well, I mean, I think Kevin Eastman used to talk about the fact that Kirby could take a blank piece of paper, start at the top corner, and go to the bottom corner and actually fill it out as he goes and lay out like not, most artists, to give it context to that, what he's saying is most artists would go in and rough out shapes of the whole thing and then refine those shapes from the whole thing. And then they build upon an overall layer. What he was suggesting is that Kirby would go in from top to bottom and place things like the head goes here, the hand goes here, and all these parts just land, and he could see it all in his head, and he's just carving it out of a block of stone, so to speak.
And he was so good at these layouts that they would use obviously, artists coming in would use his work as the way to learn the method, the Marvel
And he also
method.
was his break frame. I mean, regardless of, he has a unique style. I mean, people always refer to the blocky hands, the outstretched hands, and really, really stark, contrasty, clean delineations from the whites and blacks on the page. The thing that I find that stylistically not my cup of tea, but at the same time, you cannot take away from the fact that he takes a look and a style and how things looked in comics and then blows the lid off of it.
Super dynamic. But a very talented cinematographer, obviously.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's all about that.
Romita gets this Daredevil page and goes through it. And then he starts Amazing Spider-Man after Ditko.
Ooh.
Big shoes to fill. But what Romita was doing in that title is interesting because he was known for drawing very beautiful women. So Mary Jane Watson, her style, her clothes, her introduction, her general look, and sort of how she was famously attractive, if the comic character can be said to be attractive, that was John Romita. John Romita, I believe, also did the Black Widow leather outfit. That's beautiful single line. So he was, not single line, silhouette, beautiful silhouette. He was good at drawing that, that very stylistically late 60s look and very attractive characters. And he also had a very handsome Peter Parker. In fact, Stan Lee said, the problem is everybody's good looking. That was the problem with Romita. But as Romita continued his career at Marvel, he became a fixer. So people would have a problem, he would fix it. He was ground down a little bit because he was also trying to do Amazing Spider-Man and other assignment work, but he was cleaning up and fixing things, and he became sort of an art director, and he was involved in the early designs of Wolverine, sort of creating Wolverine along with Roy Thomas and Len Wein, and we know Dave Cockrum played a hand in that, and Dave Cockrum had been over at DC and had done a character over there that looked very similar, and we talked about that when we talked about whatever we talked about, Swamp Thing, I guess. Early X-Men. So anyway, as you come out in 1974 with this character Wolverine, and he gets embedded into the Incredible Hulk for these 3 issues, hold him there in your mind. He then gets baked into the new X-Men. And that's in 75. We have a couple of X-Men here. You have Giant Size, X-Men 6.5. Now, Isaac, we've talked about X-Men just very quickly. People who want to get their early Wolverines, there's your Cockrum, done by Gil Kane.
That's a key right there. The Giant Size X-Men. It's between Raw Comics $792, highest known grade value of $15,000. Average grade at 7.5 is about a $1,431 comic. Sorry, for somebody who doesn't know a ton about X-Men, he wasn't initially brought in as an X-Men. Is that correct then?
He was a character that was in the Hulk run as an enemy.
Right.
There was reference to his Canadian-ness and to this group, the Weapon X group.
Okay.
And then they embedded him into Giant Size X-Men because they were doing the same thing. They're expanding. Here we had this Canadian character. Let's bring him back in and put him in this expansion structure. Len again and Roy Thomas again. So embed him in here. And
then because he was such a popular character, they carried him on in X-Men. And is it,
funny enough, he wasn't popular at first.
Really?
Correct.
Fascinating. Okay.
I don't think that he was supposed to last. In fact, the story goes that Claremont wasn't keen and was going to yank him. But I don't think, what was the first one? I don't think I have it here. Look up X-Men 116.
116. Here we are. I've got the cover up on the screen. It's a very intense cover. Burning at the stake.
Yeah. X-Men 116, you have Wolverine kill someone for the first time.
Whoa.
That's exciting.
Comic Code Authority let that pass.
Then we have Wolverine 120.
Okay, we're going to pop up 120 here, and this is an interesting cover as well. I like this cover. We talked about this cover.
John Byrne.
Yeah, that's an exciting cover.
I don't believe John Byrne did the cover, but John Byrne is doing this series then. He is
are we in the Claremont years here?
Yes, we are.
Okay, and you're saying that Claremont doesn't like
Wolverine. Well, he wasn't as interested in Wolverine, but John Byrne is Canadian. John Byrne, I believe, is from Calgary. John Byrne comes in, and he immediately likes Wolverine. And as you can see, he has some input, or seems to have some input, in this character. And he begins to develop Wolverine. So that's the Weapon X past.
Okay.
Now we can cut to 133. Shoot down, Nick. And there is one of my favorite Wolverine covers.
It's pretty rough.
And that is John Byrne, inked by Terry Austin. And that is an absolutely spectacular in my life. That's from 80. I was 15. So it probably came out 80, 81. When this came out, I was this was mine. This was all for me. Here we have this character. We have Wolverine alone. We have a Wolverine focus. John Byrne loves Wolverine. I love the way he draws Wolverine. It just feels so great. You have a classic Wolverine trope, which is aimless, nameless, faceless characters who are bad guys who are just getting chewed apart. Of course, they don't have the chew apart on the cover, but very exciting. 133. What would that cost me?
Raw value about $40. Typical grade of 9.6. It's actually typically graded pretty high at a $94 comic, and the highest known value is about $530, roughly speaking.
So I would love a 9.8 of this. I would like to put this up. I would love to have a slabbed. I love that cover. This was a very important title.
But this specific one in front of you is loved, and this is something that you had as a kid. Yeah.
I read it. It's been read so heavily. When I got it, it was in beautiful shape, and it's been just read and loved all to pieces.
That makes it more special. To be honest, I like that better.
So let's just jump very quickly now to three more, I guess, in the Wolverine run. I only asked you to look up two of them, but I want to just here's Wendigo back. There's a beautiful burned cover. Wolverine in the Fang costume, the brown costume. It's not the Fang, but the brown costume.
So at this point, is he gaining popularity, or is it just the fact
he's super popular right now by 140? And then when you look at the two I asked you to look at, the 1-2 punch of 141 and 142.
141 is such a great cover.
Two absolutely critical comic books in comic book history. This is obviously classic. This issue everybody dies. This is pure John Byrne. This is pure Chris Claremont, pure Wolverine. This goes into the future. Have you ever seen an X-Men movie where they go into the future?
I don't know if I've seen them all, but I've seen most of them.
This is a very important pair of comics. If you're a Kitty Pryde guy, if you're a Wolverine guy, if you're an X-Men guy. And by the way, I said guy. I'm a guy, so I said guy. But I think women were collecting X-Men. Why wouldn't they? Got Sentinels, beautiful covers. Some time travel. This is a must-have. What is this going to set me back if I want?
Raw comic is $92. Average is $276, and the top end is $850. So it's in there for as important of a comic as it is. It's not too bad.
So by this time, I need to upgrade mine because mine are red again. Mine are well loved. Mm-hmm. All my X-Men are well loved up to a certain point when I suddenly panicked and thought I can't keep looking at these so many times. I used to, when I was in university, I would take pictures of them. I would lay them all out and take photos of them.
With like a 35 mil camera.
I would burn 35 millimeter film taking pictures of my X-Men comics.
We got to find those photos.
I do not. I was so into Wolverine by then. It was just so important.
So this is getting into that whole there's so many examples of this in different kind of pop culture franchises where the most complex, the most what am I trying to say? Not just complex, but the person who's got the most baggage, or the character has got the most baggage. Isn't that character?
That's a really good point.
They become the most interesting character. I mean, I'm using obviously some of the stuff that I love the most. Is the most interesting characters are usually the ones that have the most conflict. There it is. There's the word I was looking for. Conflict.
Okay, you can't have more baggage than a comic book character, but Wolverine's baggage was particularly interesting. But it was more than that. It was the way Byrne did Wolverine was exciting. The way Chris Claremont wrote Wolverine was exciting. But Wolverine sort of, like we liked Conan for the reason, he was smashing through things that would be obstacles.
Yeah.
And as a reader of comic books, you're used to these codes that are so frustrating.
Yeah.
Like Superman's moral code is annoying.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my point. Is I'm maybe reducing it down to too small of an idea, but it's basically those that are pushing the edge of morality are more interesting characters. Thus, have a longer legacy like this. Now, I'm actually interested in looking at if you compare why does Wolverine have such a staying power, but say Punisher doesn't. Does Punisher push those elements too far? Because I would argue that Wolverine is far more popular than a Punisher character.
100%. We're going to talk about Punisher later. Another issue, another episode.
I'm pretty sure we actually have some Punisher issues in here.
I think what I'm going to say through the thesis here is that what made Wolverine super popular was the combination. Wolverine character, created in an interesting way. Beautiful backstory, right? Interesting, tragic backstory. But also, every time somebody else got hold of Wolverine, it added something. And this is the thing about Wolverine. It's sort of like what we'll talk about with Batman. Yep. Everybody's version adds layers and elements that really make that character more exciting. Top down, Nick.
This is a classic.
Frank Miller. So Frank Miller, as we know, so important to Batman, Dark Knight, right?
Yeah.
Was so important in Daredevil
Sin
and
City,
Elektra.
Daredevil, yeah.
Did this with Chris Claremont.
This is I always think of this image. This always reminds me of that comic book store we go to often when we're shooting in Hollywood, or it's up in Burbank, isn't it? The one that's up over the hill, and this is muraled on the wall as you walk up towards the front door.
Are you talking about House of Secrets?
No, is it Earth 2?
Oh, Earth 2, that's right.
Yeah, and it was actually rather well done. That's where I always think of this cover.
So this came out, I think, in 80?
82.
82.
September 1st, 82.
For me, this was, 82. For me, this was a great series. Obviously, I bought 2. I love the covers.
I love what it's listed on here as it says, key comic. Comics that have key characters appearance, a low print run, and or have been proven to always be in demand. Is what makes this one key comic.
So, look how many I have. I have too many of this one.
You have a lot of
too many of this one.
You can share one of those with me.
Hey, now be careful what you're saying. look how sad he is, Isaac. Come on.
Sad man.
He's very sad. And then there he's not sad. He's cool.
Nice. He's happy.
So what does this add? A lot of backstory, a lot of cool Japanese stuff, some ninja stuff. You've got the line that becomes sort of Wolverine's line, I'm the best there is at what I do. You know, that whole Wolverine ethos.
Right.
If you haven't read those, they're a great read. They feel very Frank Millery. They feel very Chris Claremont-y. They feel like they add beautiful layers. You see Wolverine's romantic side, which normally I don't talk about content in a way that the story. Sometimes, people, when they refer to the story, it's still, in them, right? Like there's something that's touching. At the time I found it powerful, but I don't look at the romantic side of Wolverine as being a giant value add over time. For me, what I like though is that they could do that. That there always is a way that you can attach something. And for me, the Wolverine stuff that I like best is usually the darkest stuff or the most tragic stuff, and the romantic side where they try and make him more, I don't know, about his feelings and make him more
human,
empathic and human. I like that less than I like the more blown out, ridiculous stuff, which is when I started to realize that I like Wolverine in people's versions. So I'm going to just hit some quick stuff here. Like what started to happen, Nick, let's go real quick here. What started to happen is they wanted to put Wolverine or Wolverine stuff everywhere. And so you started seeing like everybody had a Wolverine.
The cowl's getting a little high, isn't it?
What's that?
The cowl is getting a little high there, isn't it?
Well, that's what I'm saying. You were able to do, and give me the overhead again, Nick. You were able to do anything. There's a look back. You were able to do anything with Wolverine, play around with him, and lots of different looks.
He's also such a primal use of that weapon or that key feature. It's very primal, and it's sort of, he's got that design gimmick, for lack of a better term, of the X-Men. I can pinpoint and focus on him a lot easier than some of the more nondescript characters, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. By the way, I showed you stuff from all the different years, but what I just wanted to say is that's where my interest in Wolverine started to be, what is so-and-so going to do with Wolverine, or how would so-and-so play with Wolverine? And I know, Isaac, when we were talking about this episode, you said you don't know a lot about Wolverine and you're not a big reader of the franchise, but this feeling is that put a different artist or a different writer on a beloved character, 100%. Like that about Turtles from our Doc stuff, and you get a lot of really cool.
Well, I think we were talking about that when we were talking to Rob about Batman in general, is that it seems that the characters that have the long, and it just also is born out of the fact that if you want to prolong the life of a specific franchise or character, you got to kind of keep reinventing it. But I think that there's an internal, if you reverse it, you go, those that can be reinvented so well from creator to creator or artist to artist, they seem to stand the test of time better because they have that, for whatever reason, that magic sauce that allows them to be reinvented, like a Batman, or in this case, like a Wolverine.
So as we move forward, what I want to hit are some of the sort of high points of different artists or writers grabbing onto it. Normally writers, because that's kind of the thing that you and I have hit on over the years. So here's one, Nikki.
I love this cover.
The Incredible Hulk 340, Todd McFarlane.
Ooh, that's a big McFarlane cover.
Yeah. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the face of Wolverine.
Well, it's a neat idea, especially with the reflection of the blades.
It's a very beloved cover. It is, when you see it in the store, I'm not a Hulk collector at the time, of course I'm buying it. It's Wolverine, but also it's really smart.
Yeah. It's between $100 and $800. It's obviously well collected, but it's I mean, obviously now that I look closely, of course that makes sense when you bring up the face. McFarlane had such an amazing way of putting in all the teeth and all the big giant snarls, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, McFarlane has said in interviews that I've heard, and I wish we had interviewed him that day when it didn't pan out.
Yeah.
He has a way of doing things that may not be the most anatomically correct, but he's always going for impact and effect.
He's pushing the boundaries, man. That's what you gotta do.
That's comics,
yeah,
right?
Oh, 100%. That's what makes it good. And if you can push it boundaries well and land on it and it doesn't look goofy, man, does it ever work.
So one of our favorite artists is John Buscema.
Yeah.
What if he got his hands on Wolverine?
What does he look like?
So what you get is this Wolverine run. Now, Buscema does 1 to 14. And some of the covers are very Conan-like.
Yeah, you can see it.
Buscema's faces, Buscema's designs.
Mm-hmm.
This is a classic. Look up Wolverine 8, if you would.
Wolverine 8.
This is a character called Patch, a Wolverine nom de plume, a character he plays. Can you get Wolverine 8 up, or is it not popping?
Because it's being super slow.
Okay, we're having super slow. This is one of the most collectible ones out of the run for the cover. So it's right up there with the McFarlane Hulk cover, 340. We'll keep going because you know what's coming up. Number 10.
Here we go. It's nice. Sorry, we're back to...
So do you want to go back to 8?
Yeah, back to 8. Yeah, we're doing typical raw comic sales, about a $30 comic. Typical graded 9.8 is $129. But its only highest known sale is $130 or $230.
Mine is super loved.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun cover.
It's a fun cover. And look at 10 if you would.
9, 10. Oh, 2 over, sorry. Bear with me.
We got Sabretooth and Wolverine, and it's a very gnarly fun cover.
Who's doing that cover?
I think it's Sankovic.
Is it?
I believe so.
It's pretty rad. That's about between $30 and $100. $250 at the top end.
Let me just see now. I didn't look. I don't trust myself with that cover. We'll have to look that up. We'll have to do some work on that, some research on that cover because I don't trust myself.
I can't read there's a signature beside his head. I can't see it close enough on the screen.
But it's got a Sankovic-y look, doesn't it?
It does, but it doesn't look like Sankovic's cover.
And look at this cover.
Oh, there's a classic.
Jim Lee.
I do have that one, don't I? There we go. Yeah, issue number 27. That's Jim Lee for sure. Yeah, and that's between $10 and say $200 at the top end.
It's a very important cover as well. It becomes a model for many other covers. But look at this. This is from recently. Jim Lee. When they brought Wolverine back a few months ago. So now when you get, you have this, you had to go and get this. It's Jim Lee. And if you remember, Jim Lee. So you have a lot of Jim Lee Wolverines. If you poke around, you got to get them. We got the Buscemas. We got the Jim Lees.
Who's doing Weapon X?
Well, here's where we go and touch our Conan feelings again. Let's pull these out. All right, Nick, hit me. So,
it's a creepy cover.
BWS, Barry Windsor Smith. Now, 72 is an awesome cover, and it's a must-have. What is it, Isaac?
That's 1991. I didn't know that he was still in the scene.
Marvel Comics presents.
You can get this for $7.
And you should.
Yeah, top end $200. Yeah, you should.
But if you get this one, just give me the overhead, Nick. Then you start getting into Barry Windsor Smith's take on Wolverine, and the Weapon X story is so important to Wolverine. It's, oh my God, look at that one.
Yeah.
It's the conversion of Wolverine from mutant man into...
These are not expensive.
Mutant monster. No, they're easy, cheap to get. That's an awesome cover. And this is stuff that becomes embedded into the movie. You can get these. They're not much more than cover, are they?
No, they're like between $2, $3, $5, depending on the quality. Yeah. So
you go right up to 84, 72. If you remember that beautiful cover, to 84 is that run. And I could get this run for very little money, and I would have critical Logan, Wolverine, Weapon X action, stuff that gets embedded into the movies, that's embedded in the character and becomes core to the character, and is beautifully done by Barry Windsor Smith. Gorgeous.
That 79 is incredible. What a bizarre cover.
You like 79?
Yeah. It's really, really, it's over the top.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
But it's, it's grim, it's dark. Some people maybe don't like that. But I remember very well when this one came out, Sam Keith. That's crazy.
September 1st, 1991. And it's, talk about it, also attainable between $2 and $50.
It's cheap, but look how crazy it is. Look how abstracted the character is.
It's very abstracted.
And it's got, to me, it has a bit of a feel of, you're going to say it's not Bernie Wrightson, but I feel like you feel it?
No, I wasn't going to say Bernie Wrightson, not at all. No, I was going to go Bisley. Look at the muscles on that.
Oh yeah, Bisley body shape, but it has a feel of Bernie Wrightson to me.
Maybe I get what you're saying with like the
strings
contrast
and weirdness
and I mean, but you're really pushing the contrast in all of that. In the shadow, also in his arm and body hair. It's also it's obviously at that time when they're starting to get a bit more expressionistic, right? In the 90s, and they're pushing everything in that funny way.
I mean, Keith's Wolverines I really like, and they're weird. They didn't sort of fit. They're
he's on mushrooms because he's above mushrooms.
Yeah, he's fighting the mushrooms. But what this basically takes us to is sort of like modern Wolverine. You can go get the Old Man Logan stuff. You can get the Mark Millar stuff, or Mark Miller, however people say him. You can get the modern stuff. You can go get this. I love this. Give me this overhead there, Nick, if you would. Wolverine Max. Jock is one of my favorites. This is from what, 2012, 13? Yeah, 12.
Wow, there's a nice shot of your bald spot.
Oh, did you get a good shot of my bald spot?
Yeah, if you lean in, it was disturbing. Whoa, watch out. You shouldn't see that.
Oh, sorry, guys. Sorry about that. Maybe we'll cut around that. But Jock's Wolverine is pretty sweet. Nick, I gave you a Jock's Wolverine. Could you pull that up? Look at that.
Oh, wow.
That's one of my favorites.
That's pretty cool.
So Jock's a Scottish artist who's done some beautiful Batman stuff. I want to buy some of his Wolverine. I love that piece.
Yeah, that's very Japanese.
Yeah.
I loved it.
And these are cheap. Did you look this one up?
No, I didn't get those numbers.
It's peanuts. Covrprice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Covrprice.
Covrprice, bro.
Covrprice.
COVR.
What a coincidence.
COVR price.
I want to pull up some others.
Okay. You're on a roll here.
So a couple of years ago.
That's cute.
Return of Wolverine. Scotty Young. It's jokey, right? Silly, goofy.
It's bloody too.
Then you have sort of the series. I didn't get all the series, but I just wanted to go down to this. Remember What If?
No.
There's some good what ifs. What if Wolverine killed the Hulk? Where's the what if where he fights Conan?
Of course you'd have that. Why wouldn't you have that?
I do have it. I just set it aside. I set it aside
You have
And I lost my train of thought.
books in
Here.
front of you. There we go.
And there's another what if. So why do I bring up this again? This feel of different artists.
Well, you can kind of go anywhere, like we were saying with this character. That's a fun one.
Yeah. And again,
putting Conan and
some modern.
Yeah, that's cool. Putting Conan and Wolverine head to head, that's smart.
It's fun. Yeah. And it fits our little thesis too.
Who wins? Who wins?
Well, I can't talk about that.
Oh, okay.
Who do you think wins?
Well, Conan's not. He doesn't have regenerative powers.
I don't think Conan can beat Wolverine, but they're not going to let it happen.
He's just awesome.
I want to hit a couple more. So Wolverine came back recently. Nick, can you guess who that is, Isaac?
Not from that size of image, no.
Alex Ross.
Okay, yep, that makes sense. I can't. For people at home, I'm across the room looking at a 9-inch monitor, so I can't see that.
Have you ever heard the band 9-inch Monitor?
Oh, they're so awesome. There's so much, tech, synth, wave, 9-inch monitor. I got it.
This is basically Covrprice right now. You go into a comic store and buy this probably, I would think. You could buy it online for nothing. And it's a nice cover to put up. And so this reboot that's out right now, these are, again, people approach Wolverine. They hit the classic parts. Now things are well defined. You can do so many things with Wolverine. You can go back and look at the list of crazy Wolverines over the years.
And just choose your artist and see if that artist has done something with Wolverine. I'm sure they have.
Do you think David Mack has done, the painter
I'm sure
who
he
does
has.
bright? Nick, let's see. Do you have a David Mack? Look at that.
Wow.
So look at the colors. Those aren't the colors you see in the Wolverine spectrum.
Okay, here you go, Rand. What about a female artist? Any female artists on Wolverine?
Who have you got?
I don't know. Go for it.
Do you have a Deodato there, Nick?
Did you set that up?
Again, abstracted, squat, weird.
Crazy blades.
It gives you a lot. Yeah, it's perfect for making it over the top. What else did it give you there, Nick? You had something else I can't remember even now. Oh, yeah. There's Greg Capullo with the face. God, I love that face.
That's a good actor.
That's from a sketch. Mm-hmm. This is just internet pulls. Like, I don't have any of these, of course. And that's probably the end of them, isn't it, Nick, of the little samples I pulled out. I think we've made a point.
There's some key issues in this one.
We didn't even go into them in detail because we can't. I wanted to show so many things. I wanted to talk about all the things. Like we have stuff that's worth nothing, stuff that's worth lots, and we have so many things we didn't talk about. Right now, somebody's favorite Wolverine thing wasn't mentioned.
We can't catch them all.
I just grabbed some that I like, but what I wanted to drill into and what we're talking about as a collector is finding the artist, maybe the writer, but focusing on that artist right now that you like, that gives you the feel that you like, that has the cover that you like. You put it up as a piece of art. It's a character that has a lot of attributes that really exaggerate nicely.
No, we should do an episode sometime where we're talking about how people display comics. And the nice ways. We're always discussing this. What's the best way to get it up on your wall?
I'm just thinking.
We should go down that road someday.
I don't have a good setup. I really don't.
It's hard. It's a tough one to do.
It is frustrating. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of things that I would like to see up. Like, obviously, I have a lot of Wolverine. Like,
But you have a lot of everything else, too.
I have a lot of stuff. It's bad. But I have a lot of Wolverine comics and I like the covers and I want to see them up.
Yeah.
And I don't have places to put them.
Just need a bigger house. Just need a bigger house. Or more of the house, percentage-wise.
This is kind of a non-starter to say to your wife, dear, we need a bigger house so I can display more comics. It's a non-starter. What would be a Wolverine
it would
of
start
all...
something, maybe.
What's that?
It would start something, maybe.
Yeah, it would not be a good setup. Of all the Wolverines that we saw in this, and remember, you're not a collector. I don't know if you need to be reminded. Remember, you're not a Wolverine collector. Which is the one?
For me?
Which Wolverine looked like the Wolverine to you? Because I picked the one I think you're going to say.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Now I'm curious what that one is. It's hard to say. I mean, I was actually kind of blown away by some of the Barry Windsor Smith stuff, but then
beautiful.
But I'm partial to some of the things that come out of the sort of the later stuff, the 90s. So that's why I picked up on that.
Oh.
But then
Wow.
there's some classic stuff back in the early part. Now I'm curious, which one did you say? I can't remember them all, to be honest. I
thought you were going to say Frank Miller. That's what I pulled up on my screen.
Really? No, I wouldn't have. See, that's not my favorite one. I actually find the first Frank Miller one, the one with the that's kind of awkward. I find it awkward. That
one?
Yeah. Not from a content perspective, just from the pose. I just find it kind of flat and funny. I don't know. Not bagging on Frank Miller.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. There's something odd about that one.
We didn't pull issues open, but if we pulled open the Barry Windsor Smith Weapon X stuff, it's jaw-dropping.
You know which actually one I like and now I'm going to say, this is the problem, is I can't remember the exact number and name of the series.
No, just
the one
randomly.
with the one with the spotlight on them. I just like the interesting abstract storytelling in that one, and of course just the style of the character is really awesome. It's got the spotlight on.
Spotlight?
And everybody's dead. It's the future, when they go in the future.
Oh, yeah. The X-Men comic.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. I like that a lot. And that era in there. But then there was also, when you were flipping through that stack of stuff that was kind of through...
Yeah, just a random bunch.
The random assortment. When he goes in that brown suit mode, and you start really pushing the big cowls and stuff, and kind of that's fun too. I really like that stuff.
Yeah. Well, what we are really talking about is a character that they squeezed all the juice out that they could and then squeezed more.
Yep. And then they added Hugh Jackman and stirred that sauce up a bit.
Did you like those movies?
I loved the Logan movie. That just as a standalone film on its own. Wow.
I've only seen it once.
Stuff. Yeah.
I've only seen it once.
Yeah.
I found it very emotional.
Yeah, it's, I'll be honest, it's not necessarily a movie I'm going to go back to from that exact problem, the emotional trip that it is. I'm probably not going to go back to it right away. But as an experience, man, it was well done. And what it's one of those scenarios where I almost want them to say, and there's our final statement, right? Don't do any more.
I don't, because my favorite part of that movie was that kid.
Yeah. Yeah, well acted. Really well acted.
Was amazing. I've never liked a kid as much in a movie ever. And I generally don't enjoy movies with kids.
It's hard. Don't put kids and dogs in movies unless you want a really hard time.
Well, do you know, that was my problem with Terminator 2.
Yeah, Terminator 1's the best of the franchise. Sorry.
Yeah.
I love Terminator 2 for a lot of reasons, but
it's great. As
a kid, I was always the same. It was like, no, Arnold as the bad Terminator out of the gate, that's the way it should be, and that's the way it just needed to stay. And it's perfect encapsulation of there's the loop, there it is, move on. But I mean, Jim Cameron was very
off track. The point I guess I was making is you can even Wolverine a girl of 11, and it's compelling. Like that character, whatever those attributes are, you called it the secret sauce. Whatever that sauce is, you apply it to a little girl character, and it's awesome.
Well, this is just it. It goes back to the complex, complicated, conflicted character that has that kind of baggage, for lack of a better term.
The darkness inside.
And they let it out, and it is Conan, it's Punisher, it's anti-heroes that we love, and for whatever reason, it's never gone away. That's what they want to look at the darkness because they can't look at it in themselves, so they have to look at it somewhere else.
So why do you think it's so personal for me? You know me, you work with me for 10 years.
You're a dark individual. It's true. It's actually, but I see it. It's that I'm not going to apply what I just said about you not wanting to look within yourself, because I'm happy to you are happy to go there, but you go there and recognize the darkness, which is within all of us. But most people, I think, need to look somewhere else because they do not want to look at their own reflection.
I think what it is for me, if I go back to being a child, being a child, and like, of course, everybody loves Spider-Man. Spider-Man was one of the first, and Batman, and the classics. But when you read Wolverine, that rage that a kid feels, the helplessness and the powerlessness that you feel over your life, and the conditions that are always being imposed on you by adults and the world around you. And Wolverine just tore it apart.
Yeah, no, 100%.
So exciting.
There's an unbridled, expression of that anger and frustration that he can just pure, and absolutely. And actually, the truth is, had I found it all comes back to the fact that you and I grew up in Clinton. So had I been able to find Wolverine at the age that I was that impressionable, then I would have totally been a fan. It's just I just didn't stumble upon it.
It was impossible for me to get. Like, I don't think popular things got to our town, honestly.
No, not really.
No.
But then again, when I grew up, it wasn't this prime time of this stuff. But much
had
like that, I wanted to go to those comics that were darker, and I hope that we can go there someday with some of my big one. When I was this age, the age that you're talking about, growing up with this, was Aliens versus Predator. That was a big one for me. The Dark Horse run, the first one. I went down to Becker's every time and got that one. Yeah, it's a good one.
That's pretty gnarly for a kid too.
Oh yeah, no, I loved that stuff. Terminator. I really wanted to get Terminator comics, and when I'd find back issues, like we go to London or something, and I'd find back issues somewhere, and I would just grab a bunch, and they were like, I found them disturbing. Like
London, England.
Yeah, London, England.
As a child.
London, yeah, right. So down to the local city, the closest city that we had. Yeah. But yeah, there was stuff in some of those that were like, ooh, this is a bit much for kids.
And that's why I liked Wolverine.
Yeah, it is. It's that uncomfortable feeling, and going there is kind of fun.
Oh, it's delicious. So in short, if you're going to go out and get Wolverine, you can't buy 181 unless you want to spend too much money, or you had to buy it 10 years ago or whatever, whenever I bought it. And you had to probably spend too much then, if I think about it. But I will say,
we're talking about spending a lot of money on old paper comic books.
It's bad.
It's a lot of
it's bad.
Layers here.
It's a bad thing. We shouldn't even do a show about it.
We probably shouldn't be encouraging anybody to spend money on comic books.
We're bad people.
We are very bad.
But we love it.
But it's art.
I would say we just showed you there's a whole bunch of modern things you can pick up for cheap, and you can put them up and they look great, and the stories are fun, and the character's complex, and he's interesting. And yes, he's a stereotype for like Marvel's last however many years, and all the juice you think has been squeezed out, but there's always room for more Wolverine. So you should go get yours. I'm Randall Lobb. This is Key Issue, the definitive podcast. Isaac, what are your thoughts? Hand gestures on the way out?
Go Canada.
That's it.